All right, peace, peace, guys. Welcome back to True Trust and Trajectory with your girl Shakim B. Today, I am very honored to be interviewing with a very special guest, Larissa. Larissa,
Yes, Larissa
uh,
McCook.
introduce yourself for me, please.
Yeah, so I'm Larissa McCook. I am a abundance mentor, author, and CEO of Abundance Academy, and I am a lifelong learner, a student, and a teacher. And I I've been in this industry for probably about 7 years now. And I absolutely love what I do because we get to help women uncover the best of who they are and what they're truly capable of. So they when they look in a mirror, they like themselves and they like what they see so that they know that in their heart and soul, they're moving in a direction that they're truly meant to live. It is not how I grew up. I have a history of abuse, poverty mindset, but I realized that my parents, my caregivers, and those they did the best they could with what they had. They just didn't know any better, and I feel truly honored and blessed to have this particular path and journey that's been placed before me.
I love that. I think like and I won't go too deep on that, just like the reason why you chose this life path and career is very admirable because I think I've said this before to someone else, right? But I find that sometimes like people either go one of two ways, right? Like they can go through the mud, the worst of it, and then, kind of like take what they get and then go the complete opposite. And then there are people that have gone through that and taken those experiences to kind of help them help everybody else. So
Yeah.
I think that's very bold, it's brave, it's very admirable. um what are so I wanted to talk about limiting beliefs today, and kind
Mhm.
of like, because I we had that conversation initially. So can you just explain what limiting beliefs are and how they impact people's lives?
So, limiting beliefs are beliefs or perceptions that you have about something that is not working for you.
Mhm.
And so often, our belief system is created prior to 7 years of age based on everything you saw, everything you heard, everything you experienced in life. And back then, maybe someone said something mean about your dress as a little girl. And then all of a sudden, you believe that people are mean, or maybe you generalize and say, oh, all boys are mean, and you adopt that belief system and you carry that forward all your life, and you wonder why you get into conflicts later on. But at 7 years old, that was a good logical decision to make because that boy was mean to you, so all boys are mean because they have to be at 7. Or maybe an adult took away your doll because you were fidgeting at a table or banging it on someone's head, and then all of a sudden you don't trust people maybe that are bigger or taller than you. Like these are simple little things that we have, but we make beliefs about our lives and our judgments based on who we are, what we think we're worth, what we think our reality actually is. A lot of times your income is very comparable to that of your parents. Why? Because that's what you believe your actual worth is. That's what you were demonstrated. That's what you were modeled, even if logically you know you could be doing better. And so our belief system is very, very deep. It lives in the depths of our unconscious mind in every cell of our body. And I think at its core, a belief is a decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question that I had was, as far as limiting beliefs and where they actually come from, because I know you said they come from like experiences, right? From what, if I'm hearing you correctly, and also like the depth of one's soul. But can you go a little deeper into that? Like explain more, like for someone that's brand new to this, where does it a limiting belief? Like how would someone be able to pinpoint, like, hey, this is a limiting belief, and this is where it came from?
Yeah. So a belief is a meaning that you give an experience. And so if I'm going to use income, for example.
Mm.
So if if you have someone whose income is 200,000 a year, they have the belief system that they have enough value to provide $200,000 worth of value to the world.
Right.
They believe they are worth that much money and that they can earn that much money, and that's the cap of their ceiling. So they have a belief system of that versus someone that might earn 2,000 a month, right? Their belief system about what they're actually worth and how much value they can, like how valuable they are, is going to be radically different versus someone that earns $2 million a year.
Mm.
And so if you look at the results in any given area, and I use numbers because I used the number 2, but it just had a different amount of zeros in it.
Right.
But income is a really great way of telling where your mental programming is set, where your belief system is set. And so often, if you don't like the results you're getting in any given area of your life, that's how you can tell that there are some beliefs that are not working. You may not know what all of them are.
Mm.
And sometimes it's not necessarily relevant to identify and pick them apart. However, if you want to have a greater state of financial wealth and you don't have it, rest assured your belief system is that you can't have it.
Right.
Maybe you're not deserving of it. Maybe you feel unworthy. Maybe you feel that money is bad. And if you have too much money, people will think you're greedy. Maybe you think if you get too much money, you won't have any friends. And you stay stuck. Versus, let's say, if you're at the $200,000 mark, well, I'm better than most people, so I'm doing all right. As long as there might be FOMO from other people, like like a mental mindset of the $200,000 bracket might be, if I could only find the right opportunity, I know I can make it big, but opportunities just don't come my way.
Mm.
Can you see how sometimes they're sneaky little things that you say, and you can start to identify limiting beliefs by what comes out of your mouth. Sometimes through journaling or even just listening to yourself. You may not be able to tell what they are in yourself, but if you start listening to other people and what they're saying, you might not need to start putting earmuffs on pretty soon, because most people wouldn't say what they say if they actually listened to what came out of their mouths.
Mm.
And if it's not going to serve that person, if it's not going to serve someone else, why bother even voicing it? Well, you're used to doing it that way. It's how it's always been. And just because that's how it's always been isn't how it necessarily has to be. And so when it comes to identifying your beliefs, what area of your life would you like to improve? Identify that. What results are you getting? And then what belief systems are leading, like what thoughts, what beliefs, what perceptions about yourself or about the world are leading you to those results?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to start uncovering some beliefs and start noticing how you speak about that. What excuses are you making? How are you justifying your position? That's going to express your belief system.
Okay. So I feel like you covered, that was the next question that I was going to ask you, but you just kind of covered that all in itself. So ultimately, a person that might not necessarily be able to pinpoint, right, what their limiting belief system is, the evidence is pretty much all around them, right? And kind of the way they're operating on their day-to-day basis.
I think sometimes we get too stressed trying to identify what the problem is.
Mm.
Or where it stems from. Sometimes it doesn't matter. It's useful to a certain point. However, if you realize that you don't like the result and some of these beliefs aren't serving you, whatever you can identify it. But really start looking at what belief system would you like instead that would serve you. If you don't believe you're worthy, you rewrite it and look at, like, what does worthiness look like for you? I like myself when I look in the mirror. I walk with my head held high. I tip the bill. I order from the right side of the menu.
Mm.
I think I am a money magnet. Clients come easily and effortless to me. People are lucky to work with me. Those are look at that smile on your face. You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's what.
so those are really constructive beliefs.
Yes.
And so the more you practice making that part of your everyday language, the more you start fully embodying them and acting and doing the disciplines of a person with that belief system. You can't just say it, you've got to actually do the do. Then
Right.
all of a sudden your world starts to change before your eyes
Yeah.
because what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're doing are all aligned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you say that, it just sidebar, because I have a squirrely mind, but it makes me think of like the body keeps score kind of thing. And I don't know why this has like been a repetitious thing that's been coming up, right? But like for someone that's not aware of, maybe the way that they're thinking, or they're not like zeroed or focused into, okay, my mind is constantly in a state of thinking like things that might be working against me, right? You talked about like you did talk about like if you're not getting the results that you want in your life, right? And it's because of how your mind thinks. So maybe a person might be in a state of lack, but they don't realize that, right? Um, so, and you did point out clear ways for people to be able to kind of determine if their limiting beliefs are hurting them or not, right? But is there any way that you feel like limiting beliefs might be positive or helpful in any sort of way?
I mean, beliefs are beliefs, right? Whether we decide they're limiting or unlimiting is up to us
Mm.
because it's our choice and it's our perception.
Mm.
A belief is a belief. It's a neutral thing, and only we decide if it's holding us back or if it's working for us. What might be like a a, a, a limitless belief at one phase of your life might become a more limiting belief at another phase. And so I think you really need to get to know yourself better than anyone else. Like beliefs can act as a protective mechanism, but it's all in your perception of things,
Right.
right? Having a belief that people are mean might prevent you from talking to people so that
Mm.
you don't get hurt, but it can also hold you back from opportunities. So you might prevent yourself from getting rejected, but then you don't have the opportunities you're looking for because rejection and failure is part of growth. So is it bad? Is it good? I don't know. It's up to you to decide.
Right. Exactly.
There might be times where you're just like, yeah, opportunities are not a good thing for me at this point, but the next week that could change.
This is very true.
Mhm.
So, just based on your own experience, why do you think that some people overcome limiting beliefs while other people stay stuck in those?
They make a decision too.
Mm.
They they decide that they don't want it to be a certain way,
Mm.
and they follow through. They make a committed decision.
Mm.
Sometimes there's a concept called secondary gain, and it's where you say you want to change or you say you want something, but you're getting so many advantages being the victim in your own life. And so because you have these advantages, people are paying attention to you. People are saying, "Oh, dear," and they're feeling sorry for you. You might have people to gossip with. You might have, other other advantages to being a victim in some respective way. May not always feel good, but part of it actually does feel good. You're getting a sneaky side benefit.
Mm. So, did you say it's like self-deceptive type of
It
tactic.
yeah, like we deceive ourselves all the time. And when you're aware that you're actually putting yourself in these positions, you're not doing it consciously. I don't think a lot of people don't do these things consciously.
Mhm.
We may be sort of aware of them, but we brush them off or we make excuses or we justify them. However, we when we truly get honest with ourselves and not from a non-judgmental place. This isn't about beating yourself up, but when you truly get honest with yourself and you look at how am I benefiting from this situation? Ah, this is a terrible relationship. This is a terrible circumstance. Instead of going, how did I get myself into this? How am I benefiting from the situation? And when you do, right? When you do, then you start to acknowledge and recognize some of the sneaky things that come up. And you can say, that's interesting. How fascinating that I would make that choice.
Mm,
Turn these beat up moments into a place of curiosity where you can turn that curious hat on, where you can start looking at yourself with fascination and saying, that was a very interesting choice.
instead of a judgmental one.
Moment, it'll take the judgment off. It'll neutralize it'll neutralize things for you.
Like that definitely resonates with me because I feel like, and I'm not even trying to be funny or anything, but I feel like I'm always in a constant state of like introspection, right? And I think with introspection and with accountability, there's some growth that has to happen. Like it's not questionable. Like it just has to, right? So I do find myself getting more curious. Like since my mind has been opened up to, hey, like maybe it's very vital and important to get more curious about me, right? Because I'm naturally curious to the outside world. But if as within, so without, and if my experience or my life perception is shitty, nonetheless, right? That has a lot to do with maybe what's going on within. So exactly. So I'm like, okay, now I start asking myself questions like, you know, why do you want this? What are you getting from this? Because just before you said this is not something that you would want to do, but now so it's that the limiting beliefs like back it goes back to that like and it takes a lot of work and it's like a lot of effort and it also is like reparenting, but it's only yourself. Like you got to reparent you.
And I think we have, like, I truly firmly believe that when we popped out of our mama's womb, we were not born with limiting beliefs. We weren't born with any kind of beliefs.
Right.
We were just pretty neutral. And what happened is over time, we learned things. We learned when we cry, we get attention. It's a really good strategy. So what do? We cry differently as we get older, but sometimes we still cry. And
Yeah.
we get attention. Why? Because attention feels good. Sometimes attention gets you cuddles.
Yeah.
Kids love cuddles. My son's 7. He's like, Mama, I love cuddles.
It feels good. Like
Yeah,
it makes you feel like human. Like
feel loved, supported, safe. There's a huge safety
yeah.
aspect to that.
Yeah.
And so, but we weren't born with any limiting beliefs. We learned all of the beliefs and that we have as we move forward. And the cool thing is if you can learn something, you can unlearn it and relearn it. So if you learned your beliefs, you can unlearn them and you can relearn them, which we don't often think about that way. We go, "Oh, how do I get rid of this limiting belief?" Well, you can literally let it go. There are so many different techniques to overcome limiting beliefs. You can do journaling techniques. You can I use a technique called timeline therapy that we use with clients to help them overcome limiting beliefs, but like 5 to 15 minutes and it's done. And it turns the unnecessary or the not so good situation into a really empowering opportunity for you.
Mm,
And so often we miss that side because in every negative seeming situation, there's always some positive aspect to it. When you can truly see the important parts of the positive aspect of you in the situation, and essentially it's all about you, then you can let the baggage of the situation go, because we make judgments about ourselves in those
mm,
moments, and then we just carry them with us. And so the more we can truly give ourselves permission to let go and let God, the easier it becomes. And it's way easier said than done. Like I know I'm saying it's easy. I've seen it. I've done it with clients, super easy. But you have to be willing to, and you have to be ready to.
yeah.
Sometimes to get to that point, it's not everyone's ready right off the bat. But when you are, when you truly are, there are many different ways to let go of your limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
If you there's one I even teach in one of my workshops. And it's in my book. So I have a chapter in my book on limiting beliefs, and I have one simple do-it-yourself process that works with predictable certainty. And I think the more we can keep things simple in our lives, the easier we can set ourselves up for change.
No, I totally agree on that. As a person, I consider, I don't like to like label it, but like a complex mind of like overthinking things. I feel like clarity, certainty, and like clear cohesiveness is very important. So I expect that from everybody outside of me, right? But like coincidentally, sometimes it's difficult for me to do myself, right? So in asking, you had mentioned a technique that works in about 10 minutes. Are you able to kind of go into that a little bit, or
That those we do one-on-one sessions. I can explain it, but to really experience it,
you would
um,
have to, yeah.
one is part of a process. But there the do it yourself, maybe I'll talk yourself through the one I've got in my book, because that's a really straightforward one. And
Yeah.
let's use the example of I'm an overthinker.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
That's okay.
For me.
So I'm an overthinker. I overthink. What do you want to believe instead?
Positive positivity.
Okay. So is it that do you want to believe that you keep things simple, or you have peace in your mind, or you're a peaceful person, a calm person? What are your words?
Balance. Like I'm a balanced person.
I'm a balanced person. Okay. So that's the opposite of the identity statement.
Mm,
And let's get a behavior to go along with it, because you said I'm an overthinker, and then we said I overthink. So we had an identity and a behavior. So I'm a balanced person. Instead of
operate
overthinking, what do you do instead of overthink?
operate with ease.
Okay, I'm a balanced person. I operate with ease. So old, I'm an overthinker. I overthink. New statement, new belief. I'm a balanced thinker. I operate with ease. Now,
Mm.
I know you want to believe that, but do you actually believe that?
Not 100%, if I'm being honest. No. It's a no for me, Lisa.
Okay. No. Okay. And this is where 99% of people stop.
Okay.
Okay.
And that makes sense. It's fair because that requires, like, once you feel like you've hit that barrier, it's like,
Well, here's the thing though. If you keep telling yourself a lie,
yeah,
you're going to be calling yourself a liar as you keep going along. You're like, I'm trying to rewrite this belief system. I'm a balanced person. I think and operate with ease. Like crap. No, you
yeah,
don't. You're going to be talking to yourself, and then you're going to reinforce that too.
yeah.
So, the third step I like to take, I said beliefs are a decision. What's maybe, so we add the word decision. I've decided that I think that I operate with that I'm that I've decided to become a more balanced thinker every day and operate with more ease today than I did yesterday. Is that
Mm.
something you could find?
It
Or is it close?
it does. It's all in the wording, and I
Yeah,
feel like, I guess that would be the point, right? A lot of people, they know the change that they want to make,
yeah,
but maybe they don't have access to, like, the verbiage or the words,
yeah.
or even, like, yeah, the verbiage to connect to the emotion, or even change of the emotion because they haven't been taught to label it.
Right. And so in your case, if we add the word decision, so I've decided that I'm becoming a balanced thinker. Can you
Mm,
believe that? You
yeah.
close your eyes and try it on. Are you like, yeah, I've decided I'm becoming a more balanced thinker?
Goodness. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
There
yeah,
you go.
absolutely.
And I'll do my best to operate with more ease today than yesterday. Could you stand
Wow.
behind that?
Absolutely, because I know that's deep down, like, that is an intention.
Right. And so that's a truthful statement.
Mm,
Say that kind of statement for 2 weeks over and over again. And
mm,
within a couple weeks, you're probably gonna be like, "Damn, I am a balanced thinker, and I totally do operate with these." Especially if you actually follow through on it. If you do one thing a little easier today than you did yesterday, you're like, "Check mark, dopamine hit. I'm making a pat on my back, round of
yes.
applause. I'm doing a good job." That's what we're deeply, deeply craving. And
Exactly.
so I'm a more balanced thinker. Cool. That could be a truthful statement. So we're massaging it. I've decided that I'm going to operate with more ease today than I did yesterday. Adding the word decision and massaging the statement so it's actually true, game changer.
Different, different.
And that you don't sure you could say I'm a balanced thinker and operate with ease for 6 months and hope to believe it, but when you combine a truthful statement and back it with action, it doesn't even have to be massive, just some kind of action.
Yeah,
That's supportive of it, all of a sudden you build the success muscle and you look back and go, of course it's true.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
you can drop all the extra stuff because it is true.
exactly. Okay. I have another question for you. But I just want to kind of like make sure that I completely understood that. So it goes back to, if someone, right, if you don't feel the thing that you're affirming, like it, and you'll know, right, because you can feel it inside of your core, like your body knows if you're lying or not, right?
If you
So
talk back to yourself
mm,
without a yeah, you're totally on the mark, or if you have some kind of like self yucky talk, that's not a good sign.
yeah,
If in your body you're like, "Oof, it feels wrong," it's
yeah,
not a good sign. If you're like, "Uh-huh, I actually do believe that." If you can stand behind it, you know when you're telling the truth.
yeah, because you feel it.
You do. You have to actually pay attention. So you might have to like breathe a couple times or just tune out the noise for a couple minutes just to notice it, but everyone knows when they're telling the truth or when they're telling a lie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so that brings me to my next question. How do you differentiate between a limiting belief and a realistic concern?
I mean, I think the belief is your perception of reality. And do you have do you have an example of that? Is there something that you have in mind specifically?
Okay. So, hypothetically speaking, right?
Yeah.
Let's say if a person just lost their job, right? And their mind and probably like part of their body feels like, okay, maybe things will be okay. Like, I'll be all right. This happened for me, not to me, right?
Yeah.
But on the flip side of the coin, they have the anxiety about like paying bills, like all of the stuff that's about to hit them, and kind of like just dog walked through their through life. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. Am I cursing too much?
It's okay. It's okay. Children are at school.
But okay, is that like, was that explanation like that?
So, so even with something like that, everything you believe is true.
Mm,
So if you believe God's going to take care of you, God will take care of you. It might look different than you expect it to. That's the thing.
right?
Sometimes it looks different. And sometimes it feels bad.
Yeah.
And in the moment you don't notice it's always happening.
Mm,
And so it might not appear as though you are being taken care of. However, if
mm,
deep down fundamentally you believe everything's going to be okay, it is.
yeah.
Now, anxiety is something totally different. It's you making up something in the future that hasn't happened yet.
Oh,
So you use the word having anxiety about not paying your bills. So in this case, you are anticipating there won't be money for bills, and you're playing that future made up story that hasn't happened yet in your mind and saying, reinforce this belief, reinforce this picture, bring it to me.
mm,
Versus you could just close your eyes and maybe erase that picture in your mind, like literally white it out or erase it, and then create a picture in your mind where you are paying your bills. And then you know what's going to happen? Your anxiety
away
won't
you
be.
remain.
You
Yeah.
just you won't have it. It's going to be gone. You're like, oh well, okay.
Yeah.
And so often we anticipate things in the future, and that's not a belief.
Mm,
That's making up something fake that hasn't happened yet, and it being a story that isn't serving us.
mm.
So if you're going to make up your reality, make it a good one first,
Okay.
and take the aligned actions to support it.
I love that. Are there any books or podcasts or resources you would recommend for overcoming unlimiting beliefs?
For limiting beliefs. If your readers want to access my Stop Procrastinating book, I've got, like
Okay.
I said, I have a chapter in the book about limiting beliefs
Okay.
and overcoming them. So you can access it at stopprocrastinatingbook.com.
Okay.
And I mean, one of the biggest things, like when it comes to limiting beliefs and even beliefs in general, when you look for something, you're going to find it. So sometimes the more attention we spend on something, if you decide to spend a lot of time looking for limiting beliefs, you know what you're going to find?
Oh, disappointments and failures, baby.
I might recommend to you is notice these scenarios where the results aren't there.
Yeah.
Notice what you can and start speaking to yourself in really positive and constructive ways instead. Learn how to create a positive belief system and put more attention on that. What would I like to believe? What would I like to say about this? What would I like to experience? How would I like to walk? How would I like to talk? How would I like to operate? What is the reality I want?
Mm,
And put 99% of your time on that. The fact is, most people focus on what they don't want and they get it. Because where attention goes, energy flows and results show.
shots fired, Larissa. In a good way though. Like I promise you. It's everywhere you go, there you are, right?
Yeah.
What
We
you just
started
said makes me think about that.
a few years back. I used to tell my clients to study positive things, and I gave them so many beautiful guidelines. And I had like two of them that did.
Mm,
And those few clients, they got progress. And then the rest, they were trying to make progress, but I'd feel bad asking them and they didn't do the work they were supposed to. They had all these great reasons and excuses.
mm,
And I didn't feel good about it, and neither did they. So what I started doing by experiment about just under 3 years ago, just about 3 years ago, is I started morning calls. And I said, for a month, you can come in and tap into my morning routine. And you know what they did do is they showed up. They clicked the Zoom link and they showed up. And because they physically showed up and we talked about positive things and we practiced different methods of positive thinking, like we ran the drills, they started making really powerful changes super, super fast. And everyone that we bring into our program within a week of those morning calls are like, oh my God, things are just, not everything has changed, but so many things are so much better. Why? Because they're practicing a new mindset. This kind of thing is not natural to us in most cases.
Right.
We have to learn how to do it. We have to learn how to practice it. And when we stop letting limitations get in our way and consume really constructive knowledge, there's a lot of it out there. I have in my Stop Procrastinating book, there's a bonus section that you can download. And you can, when you download the bonus section, there's like a huge book list. So I actually have a book list in the limiting belief chapter as well. Okay. But like, don't go there. Don't go rushing there first. Like, just focus on the good that you desire and spend more time there. Spend more time there. And I think so often we're so busy trying to go down the rabbit hole to fix things. And yes, I'm not diminishing that. However, spend 80% of your time on what you want, maybe 95% of your time on what you want, and just a little less time fixing the problems. And you're going to notice you don't have as many problems as you used to have.
Man. Oh, that was shots fired. That definitely makes sense. A lot of the times, like what you just said, it makes me think of like people that repeat like habitual patterns in their life, right?
Yeah.
They're not able to predict the trends as the patterns come along because they're not actually paying attention, right? They're just kind of to an extent in survivor mode. But when you can actually take a step back from that and actually start reflecting, like, hey, like, and it for me, it's been like small stuff. So it's like, hey, what thoughts or content have I been consuming within this period of time that's made me feel like that has then generated this level of thoughts? Because people just think that thinking thoughts is just regular work. No, that's spell work. Like you're literally casting spells over your life.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you know how important the work that you're doing is, but like I freaking appreciate you for that because we're not aware. Like we just think that our minds are just this nothing piece of equipment, right? That gets us through day by day, but it's more than that.
It creates your future.
Literally. And if you don't believe it, like look at the dreams that you're having. It tells you everything,
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, right? And because you started doing your work, you're noticing results. And those calls that we started almost 3 years ago, we still do them. It was a 1-month experiment and the clients are like, you can't stop doing them. We need to keep coming. And so we're still doing them every single day. But even just over the summer, we were actually doing a belief boot camp. Okay. Where we're acknowledging limiting beliefs, but also really emphasizing the positive. Because so often whenever we typically address beliefs, it's always about negative beliefs. And I was like, I want to like spend a little more time on the other parts too. And one of our clients during a morning call, she said, what's been great about this experience is I didn't feel pressured to try to deal with it all at once. Why? Because I knew I was coming back here tomorrow and I knew I'd be back the day after that. And this week I was in the mood to address this part and I saved the rest on a paper, and over time it got dealt with. But it was just easy and it took the pressure off because she knew she was constantly cleaning shop. It's like your mind is a garden. And it doesn't care what you plant. You can plant weeds and it'll give you weeds. You could plant beautiful flowers and it'll give you beautiful flowers. But if you have those beautiful flowers planted, you know what you still have to do? You still have to weed
You have to read
the
out
garden.
things.
A few weeds are going to come in there.
Yeah.
You may not think you plant them, but you know, things come up, things blow in from other places.
Right.
You've got to keep weeding your garden. And in most of our cases, we need to do a big weeding, a big spring weeding. And then we just maintain.
Exactly.
And when you just keep maintaining, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. Your life does not depend on one teeny tiny little thing.
Yeah.
And your life absolutely does depend on it.
Yeah.
In a
Exactly.
beautiful way.
So the final question that I'll ask you before wrapping up is, what does the maintaining look like for like anybody completely new to this? And then just like, what are some suggestions that you would be able to give as far as good housekeeping on that?
Yeah. Keep checking in with yourself. If you're in business, if you're not constantly checking your numbers and your metrics and statistics and your income and your P&L, you know what's going to happen? It'll take a mind, it'll have a mind of its own.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're in health and you're not checking in on how your clothes are fitting, how your body's feeling, what you're putting in, what you're letting out, right? Literally, like in our family, we taught our son to do poop patrol. He loves it. Why? Because he actually pays attention to what goes out of his body. However,
I love that.
he's 7, he's fascinated. Like anything bathroom talk, awesome. But he also pays attention to what goes in. He looks at it and he goes, ooh, must have eaten extra salad this week. Ooh, must have eaten, right? And so he makes those, it's funny,
Yeah.
but most people don't always think that. What goes in must come out.
Exactly.
With relationships, if you're feeling tension, if they're not working, what went in to create that? And if they are absolutely thriving, what did you do
Mm.
for that to happen? So look at the results in your different respective areas of your life: health, wealth, relationships, contribution. Those are the main pillars of your life. And if things are good, cool, keep doing more.
Yeah.
Things are not so good, course correct. Pick one thing at a time to address, just one thing at a time to address, and don't beat yourself up over it. Just be like, oops, course correcting over here. And then you know what's going to happen when that's course corrected? You're going to be like, oh, forgot to look at this, so let me look over here. There's always going to be something to navigate and to tie together. And if everything is pretty good, you know what you do? What can I do to make it better?
Mm.
What can I do to make it better? What can I do to like up level it and get to my next level of success? Because it's not about just fixing, and at first you might need to put out fires. But then once you're like at a fairly good level of maintenance and things are pretty much ticking along, how can I elevate and expand? And that is powerful.
I love that. And you gave me definitely a lot to think about during this episode. Just in closing, is there anything else that you would want to share with the audience or anything like that?
Yeah, I think regardless of where you're at, whether you think you're at the bottom, whether you think you're somewhere doing okay, whether you think you're at the top of your game, just realize that you have infinite potential. And wherever you are, the world is absolutely here waiting for you with open arms. It's your job to say, I'm ready to take the next step forward. And all you've got to do is keep taking the next step and keep taking the next step, because as you take those steps, all of a sudden you start to build momentum. Okay? And when you stop, it's hard to build the momentum. But when you take one step, even if it's a slow step, it's easier to keep going. And it might feel like you're moving at a geriatric pace some days, and it might feel like you're skyrocketing the next day. Just keep moving forward every day and realize you are a human.
I love that. And I personally took so much away from our conversation today. For my audience that's viewing today, I hope that you guys also receive value from this episode, please make sure you leave in the comments what your biggest takeaway from this is. What is one limiting belief that you're actively working on expunging from your life or trying to repurpose? Not repurpose, right? But
Let go of.
let it go. And if you guys found this episode useful, please make sure you drop a like and also subscribe. Check the description box for Larissa's contact information. Also, make sure you guys check out her book. The episode is scrolling down below. Again, thank you for guys for joining True Trust and Trajectory, and I love you all.